I was widowed and 5 months pregnant when my mother-in-law took my stepdaughter away, pressuring me to end the pregnancy. The raw earth hadn't even settled on Michael's grave when his own mother offered me cash for an abortion and moved to steal my stepdaughter. But the greatest betrayal wasn't hers. It was the horrifying truth about the man I'd just buried. A bitter wind, sharp as shattered glass, tore across the Seattle cemetery, whipping strands of hair into my eyes and pressing my black coat thin against my 5-month pregnant belly. Gray skies wept in almost rain, mirroring the storm brewing inside me, a silent scream trapped beneath the sound of rattling leafless branches. "Take it, Sarah." Eleanor Vance, Michael's mother, pressed a thick, cream-colored envelope, heavy with cash, into my shaking hand. On top, a clinic address, printed stark and cold. The clinic is on Pine Avenue. They do it quietly. No questions asked. My hand, trembling, drifted instinctively to my belly, where Michael's and my baby had been growing for 5 long months. The wind howled, like it was trying to erase him faster than the gravediggers could. I stared at her, the words stuck in my throat, tangled with grief and a dawning horror. Eleanor had Michael's sharp jawline, his pale gray eyes, but where his face had always softened when he looked at me, hers hardened like someone tightening a screw, drawing blood. I can't," I whispered, my voice a ragged breath. "This is Michael's baby. Our baby." "It was Michael's baby," she corrected, the past tense a deliberate, brutal slap. "Michael is gone. And you, Sarah, cannot afford to raise a child. You barely afford yourself." Her eyes slid down my body with something akin to contempt, dissecting my thrift store funeral dress, my worn shoes. "Be practical for once. Take the money, handle it. Then we can talk about what comes next." Behind her, 6-year-old Chloe stood perfectly still in her little black coat, clutching a stuffed rabbit against her chest. Chloe, Michael's daughter from his first marriage. Chloe, who had called me mom for the past 3 years. Chloe, whose own mother had died of leukemia before I'd ever met Michael. Chloe, who now watched her grandmother hand me an envelope, not understanding, but understanding enough to look profoundly scared. "Grandma," Chloe said softly, her voice a tiny whisper against the vast silence of the graves. "Why are you giving Mommy money?" Eleanor didn't even turn around. "Get in the car, sweetheart. We're going home." Home. The word ripped from me. "Eleanor, I'm taking Chloe home with me. To our house." She laughed. A short, dry bark that turned heads among the few mourners still lingering by the freshly dug plot. Your house?" she scoffed. "Oh, Sarah, that house is in my name. Michael borrowed the down payment from me 7 years ago. It was a family loan. Nothing was ever transferred to him properly." Her gaze was condescending, cutting. "You really thought a grade school teacher married into this family and automatically got a waterfront property in Magnolia?" My knees went soft, the damp earth beneath my feet seeming to give way. I'd lived in that house for 3 years. I'd painted the nursery just 2 weekends ago. I'd placed Michael's old baseball trophies on the mantel because he was sentimental about them. I'd hung my mother's quilt in our bedroom. I'd made that house mine. "That's not true," I choked out. "Michael told me the house was in both our names." "Michael told you a lot of things, apparently." Her voice sharpened, cold steel. "By the way, I've already had Chloe's things packed. She's coming with me tonight. The attorney will be in touch about custody. She's my granddaughter by blood. You are legally nothing to her." The snowstorm hit Seattle harder than the forecast promised. By the time I got back to what I still thought of as our house, a white SUV with Washington plates was parked in the driveway. Eleanor's housekeeper was carrying Chloe's pink suitcase out the front door. Chloe's face was pressed to the back window, her small palm flat against the glass. "Mommy," she mouthed, her voice invisible through the tinted pane. I could see it, but couldn't hear it. Panic seized me. I ran to the car, grabbed the door handle. Locked. Eleanor rolled down the driver's window half an inch. "Don't make a scene, Sarah. It's bad for the baby you're apparently so determined to keep. She's my daughter. You can't just—" "I can. And I have." Her eyes were ice. "I suggest you call a lawyer in the morning." Tonight, you should focus on packing. You have until Sunday to be out of the house. I've changed the locks on the back door already. Your key still works on the front. For now, as a courtesy. The SUV pulled away, tires crunching on the fresh snow. Chloe's small hand stayed pressed against the glass until the car turned the corner and vanished. I stood in the driveway, in my black funeral coat, hands trembling, stomach lurching. Somewhere under my ribs, the baby kicked for the first time that I could clearly feel, a tiny, insistent pressure, like a message from the only person left in the world who is still entirely mine. I went inside. The house smelled faintly of Michael's cologne, still clinging to the coat, hanging on the hook by the door. I sat down on the cold marble floor of the foyer, in my coat and my funeral shoes, and I cried until I couldn't breathe. I didn't sleep that night. I spent it going through every drawer in Michael's office, searching for something. Proof of ownership, a mortgage statement, a deed. Anything. What I found instead was strange. His desk drawer had a false bottom. I only found it because I was yanking drawers out to empty them, and one of them weighed more than it should. Underneath, taped flat, was a second phone. Not his regular iPhone. A black, cheap-looking burner phone. Still charged. Password protected. There was also a business card. No company logo, just a name, handwritten. Dr. Daniel Shaw, Cascade Women's Health Clinic. And beneath it, a hastily scribbled note. Asterisk, if anything happens, go to him. Trust him. Asterisk, I stared at it for a long time. Michael had been a software engineer, worked for a defense contractor in Bellevue. He traveled sometimes for work, usually nothing more dramatic than Phoenix or San Diego. 2 weeks ago, he'd left for a trip to Anchorage, a routine client visit, he said. 3 days later, the State Department notified me that the small chartered plane he'd been on had gone down in the mountains east of Anchorage. No survivors. The body they returned was burned beyond recognition. We'd identified him through dental records. At least, that's what the letter from the medical examiner said. I sat on the floor of my husband's office, holding a business card in one hand and a burner phone in the other. And I felt something shift in my chest that was neither grief nor hope. It was something older than both. A weariness. An instinct. I didn't call the number that night. I was too tired. I put the phone and the card in the bottom of my purse and went to bed, the darkness swallowing me whole. The next morning, I called 3 family law attorneys from the list my friend Rachel texted me. The first 2 had long wait lists. The third, a woman named Elena Rodriguez, agreed to see me that afternoon. I drove to her office in my own car. Or, at least, I tried to. The car was gone from the driveway. A tow notice was zip-tied to the mailbox. Vehicle repossessed by owner. Title held by Eleanor Vance. I took the bus. I'm a second-grade teacher. I'm not afraid of a bus. Elena Rodriguez listened to my whole story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad, occasionally pursing her lips. When I finished, she set the pen down. Okay, here's the honest truth, Sarah. If the house is legitimately in your mother-in-law's name alone, then she has the legal right to ask you to leave. 30 days is customary in Washington, but there's no automatic statutory period for a family member living rent-free. It's a gray area. About the car, same thing if the title isn't her name. But I'm carrying her son's child, his baby. She can't just, she can. The baby doesn't change her property rights. Elena paused, her gaze softening slightly. Now, Chloe, that's different. You're the stepmother. You've been raising her for 3 years. You might have standing for a custody petition, especially if there's evidence of an existing bond and if the biological grandmother is acting in bad faith. But that's a fight. A long, expensive fight. And she has money. You don't. I nodded slowly, a strange calm settling over me. The kind of calm that's actually the first layer of being completely underwater. What about Michael's assets? Bank accounts, life insurance? Elena looked up, her expression sharp. His employer's life insurance. Who was it paid out to? I don't know. I assumed me. I haven't gotten a check. She tapped her pen against the pad. You need to call his HR department tomorrow. If he updated his beneficiary recently to his mother, that's a red flag. Bring me everything you find. We can talk about contesting. I walked out of her office into the falling snow, feeling both lighter and heavier. Lighter because someone finally believed me. Heavier because I now understood the true, crushing size of what was happening to me. On the bus ride back to the house, I called Michael's HR department from my cell phone. I was on hold for 40 minutes. When a woman named Brenda finally picked up, her voice was cautious. "Mrs. Vance, I'm very sorry for your loss. I should tell you that there's been some administrative complexity around your husband's file. His beneficiary designations are currently under legal review." Under review by who? I'm not at liberty to say. I'd recommend you speak to an attorney. I hung up, staring out the bus window. Snow was falling sideways, a blinding curtain. I reached into my purse and pulled out the business card. Dr. Daniel Shaw, Cascade Women's Health Clinic. I called. A receptionist picked up on the third ring. Cascade Women's Health. How can I help you? I'd like to make an appointment with Dr. Shaw, please. My name is Sarah Vance. There was the briefest pause. Then the receptionist said, in a slightly different tone, almost hushed, "Dr. Shaw has an opening tomorrow morning at 9. Would that work, Mrs. Vance?" "Yes, thank you." "Mrs. Vance, he's been expecting your call."
I didn't ask her what that meant.
I just said, "Thank you again," and hung up, holding the phone against my chest for a long, long time. Dr. Daniel Shaw was in his mid-40s with kind eyes and a salt and pepper beard. The instant he walked into the exam room, he closed the door behind him and locked it. "Mrs. Vance, thank you for coming. I want you to know that you and the baby are safe here. Would you mind if I did a quick ultrasound first? I want to make sure the stress of the past week hasn't affected anything. Then we need to talk." I lay back on the table, my heart hammering. He put the cool gel on my belly. The room filled with the rapid, galloping rhythm of my baby's heartbeat. A primal sound, full of life. And I started to cry, and I couldn't stop. Strong heartbeat, healthy position. A little boy, it looks like, if you want to know.
A boy.
Michael's son. I covered my face with my hands and sobbed. The grief and fear and raw, unhinged emotions of the past week finally breaking free. Dr. Shaw waited. He handed me a tissue. He waited more. When I could breathe again, he sat down on the stool beside the exam table. "Sarah, I need you to listen carefully. I was a friend of your husband's for a long time. We met in college. I was best man at his first wedding before Chloe's mother passed. Michael and I stayed close, even when I moved out here and opened the clinic. I know this might sound unbelievable, but your husband is alive." I stopped breathing. The air left my lungs in a silent whoosh. 3 months ago, Michael came to me. He said he'd discovered something at his job. His company had been receiving money through a subcontractor chain that tracked back to a foreign shell corporation. He couldn't prove it yet, but he'd started keeping records. He'd also started noticing cars outside the house, men following him in grocery stores, phone clicks on his line. He was frightened. He came to me because he needed somewhere to go that wasn't connected to him on paper. If things got worse. Things got worse, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Things got worse. He contacted the FBI 2 weeks ago. The agent assigned to the case advised him that if the people involved believed he was dead, he'd have a window of a few weeks to gather additional evidence safely. They arranged the flight. They arranged the identification. It wasn't Michael's body they gave you. The crash was real. A different passenger, a drifter already deceased, was placed on that manifest. Michael, Sarah, he wanted to tell you. He begged them to let him tell you. They said no. They said if you knew, they'd be able to tell by looking at you at the funeral. And so would his mother. They needed both of you to grieve authentically. I closed my eyes. The cemetery, the envelope, Eleanor's cold face. It all clicked into a horrible, perfect picture. His mother? I said, the name a bitter taste on my tongue. Eleanor. She knew something, didn't she? Not that he was alive, but she knew he was in trouble. Dr. Shaw hesitated. We think Eleanor is the inside contact at his company. She sits on the board. She approved several of the suspect subcontractor payments. Michael discovered that 3 weeks before he disappeared. We believe she realized he discovered it. We believe she was preparing, which is why she moved so quickly on you the moment he was dead. She needs you out of the picture. She needs Chloe under her control. And she needs the life insurance payout redirected, which it already has been. She forged a beneficiary change form 2 days after the funeral. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the sound of a person whose world had been turned upside down, and then turned upside down again, until she wasn't sure which way was up anymore. So my mother-in-law isn't just cruel. She's a criminal. Yes. And my husband isn't dead. No, and my baby is safe.
Yes.
And your stepdaughter is going to be safe, too. We just need to move carefully. The FBI is already watching Eleanor. But your safety is what matters right now. Michael has a safe place for you. It's ready. He wants to see you soon. I promise. But first, we get you somewhere no one can find you. That night, Dr. Shaw's sister, a quiet woman named Grace, drove me to a small cabin outside Leavenworth, 3 hours east of Seattle. It was stocked with groceries. It had a wood stove. It had prenatal vitamins on the counter and a little basket with a note in Michael's handwriting. Asterisk Claire, I know you're reading this hating me. I deserve it. Please let me make it right. Please stay safe. I love you more than my life. Asterisk, I held the note against my chest and I slept for 14 hours straight, for the first time in weeks. But Chloe was still with Eleanor. On the 3rd morning at the cabin, I called Dr. Shaw from the burner phone I'd found in Michael's desk, the one Grace had shown me how to activate safely. I can't just leave Chloe there, Dr. Shaw. She's 6. She doesn't understand what's happening. Her father just died. Now her stepmother vanished. Eleanor is going to turn her against me, or worse. Sarah, I heard him breathe slowly on the other end. The FBI asked me to tell you to be patient for 48 more hours. They're almost ready to move. 48 hours is too long. She's scared. I knew what I was suggesting was reckless. But I also knew that no one was coming to save Chloe unless I stood up. And I was tired, bone tired, of being a woman whom things happened to. I'm going back to Seattle. I'm going to Eleanor's house. I'm going to get my daughter. Sarah, I'm her mother. Grace drove me back that afternoon. We didn't go to Eleanor's house directly. We went to Elena Rodriguez's office first. I told Elena everything, every word of it, while Grace waited in the lobby. Elena listened with her mouth slightly open. When I finished, she pulled out her phone. I have a friend at the Seattle PD who handles family welfare. I'm going to call her. If we can get a uniformed officer to come with you to Eleanor's house, you have a far better chance of establishing an emergency custody claim. Stepmother of 3 years, only caregiver during the marriage. No bond with the grandmother before last week. You're her mother in every way that counts. Let me make some calls. By 6 p.m., I was sitting in the front seat of a Seattle police cruiser, driven by Officer Anya Sharma, with Elena Rodriguez following in her own car. We pulled into Eleanor's long, expensive driveway in Laurelhurst. The porch light was on. I could see the flicker of a television through the living room curtains. I rang the doorbell, my heart a drum against my ribs. Eleanor answered in silk pants and a cashmere sweater. Her smile evaporated the moment she saw the officer. Miss Vance. Officer Sharma said politely. We're here on a welfare check regarding a minor child, Chloe Vance, and to facilitate a conversation between Miss Sarah Vance and the child. We don't have a custody order yet, but Miss Vance has been the child's primary maternal caregiver for 3 years, and she's entitled to check on her. This is harassment, Eleanor said, her voice gone thin, brittle. Ma'am, please step aside. From upstairs, I heard a small voice. Mommy, and then the sound of small, fast feet on the stairs. Chloe hit me at full speed, and I nearly lost my balance. She buried her face in my coat and cried in that silent, shuddering way she did when she was trying to be brave. I dropped to my knees on the cold marble floor and held her, saying her name over and over, my own tears finally falling. Eleanor was still talking, protesting loudly. Officer Sharma was no longer really listening. She was on her radio. And that's when the FBI came through the door. 2 agents, a man and a woman, badges on their belts, very calm, very professional. They asked Eleanor to step into the living room. They asked if she knew a man named Victor Harding. They asked about wire transfers to a shell corporation registered in Panama. They asked about a forged insurance beneficiary designation. Eleanor sat down very slowly on her own couch. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. She looked at me across the room. I was still on the floor, holding Chloe, rocking her gently. For a long moment, Eleanor's face did something complicated, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. Then it hardened again, a mask. "Sarah, whatever they've told you, it's not what you think." "Eleanor," I said quietly, my voice surprisingly steady, the words echoing in the suddenly silent room. "I know my husband is alive." Her face went utterly white. The agents exchanged a glance. "Ma'am," the woman agent said, her voice firm, "we're going to need you to come with us." I stayed at Elena's house that night with Chloe. We slept in the guest room. In one bed, Chloe's head tucked under my chin, one of her small hands resting on my belly. At one point, half asleep, she said, "Is there really a baby in there?" "Yes, sweetheart. Your little brother." "Good," she mumbled, already drifting off again. "We're going to need more people on our team." I laughed, and I cried, and the baby kicked. And Chloe felt it, and squealed. And for the first time in weeks, I understood that I was going to survive this. Michael came home a week later, thinner, shadowed under the eyes, a scar above his right eyebrow that hadn't been there before. He came up the walk of Elena's house, because our house was still evidence. And when I opened the door, he dropped his knees on the porch and pressed his forehead against my belly and apologized for so long, so utterly broken, I finally had to ask him to stop. I didn't forgive him right away. He didn't expect me to. We spent the next few months in therapy, together and separately, and I said a lot of hard things out loud that I needed to say. He listened to all of them. The FBI's investigation unspoled slowly. Eleanor Vance was charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, insurance fraud, and obstruction of justice. She was denied bail. The Shell Corporation traced back to a criminal enterprise that had been laundering money through defense subcontractors for nearly a decade. Michael's testimony was central. 7 people went to prison, including 2 of Eleanor's longtime friends from the country club who I had served coffee to at Thanksgiving dinners. The house was eventually sold. The money went into a trust for Chloe and for the baby. We moved to a smaller place, a craftsman bungalow in Ballard with a maple tree in the front yard and a creaky third step on the porch. It was ours. Both of our names on the deed, I insisted. Liam Michael Vance was born in late April. He came out red-faced and furious and 8 pounds even. Michael cut the cord. Chloe was in the room, holding a stuffed giraffe she'd picked out herself at the hospital gift shop. When she held her baby brother for the first time, she looked up at me, very seriously, and said, "He's on the team now, Mom." I don't know who reads stories like this or why. Maybe you've been the woman in the cemetery with an envelope in your hand and nowhere to sleep that night. Maybe you're still there. Maybe you're watching someone you love be there and you don't know how to help. I don't have a clean moral. The world has people like Eleanor in it. And sometimes they share your last name. And sometimes they hold papers in their drawer that say the roof over your head is theirs. And sometimes they will hand you a clinic address on the day you bury your husband and call it kindness. But the world also has Dr. Shaw in it. Elena Rodriguez. Officer Sharma. Small daughters with stuffed rabbits who know exactly who their mother is without being told. Husbands who come back on their knees. Sons who arrive in April, on time, healthy, ready. I thought I was a woman things happened to. It turned out I was a mother. And a mother, it turns out, is the most dangerous thing in the world to underestimate. I got my daughter back. I got my husband back. I got my son. I got my own name back on my own front door. And somewhere in a federal facility in eastern Washington, my mother-in-law is serving year 2 of an 11-year sentence. And I don't visit, and I don't write. And when Chloe asks about her, I tell her the truth in pieces small enough for her to carry. Some people you bury, some people bury themselves. Mine was the second kind. And my family, my real family, the one I fought for, the one that fought back for me, were still here, still warm, still whole, still on the team. What would you have done in Sarah's shoes? Would you have trusted a husband who faked his own death, even for noble reasons? Share your thoughts in the comments below.